Hello and welcome to The Pulse. Later in the show, our final report on Xinjiang's so-called vocational training camps. For the past 2 weeks, we've been looking at the stories of Uyghurs and ethnic Kazakhs detained in these camps. Today, we report on how intellectuals and professionals are being sent to these centres where apparently these highly qualified people receive vocational training. But first, China and Russia, once allegedly united in harmony as Marxist states, nevertheless fell out badly, not perhaps over different interpretations of Marxism, but more likely over good old-fashioned differing national interests. Now, they are allegedly friendly again as practitioners of capitalism, establishing links that have boosted trade and living standards in the Russian Far East and Northeast China. Yet everything is not as rosy as it appears. Well, with us is Marie Mendras, visiting scholar at the Department of Government and International Studies at the Hong Kong Baptist University. Can I ask you first, people seem to be very worried about Russia's intentions and actions in intervening in elections, in intervening generally in the affairs of other nations. Should they be worried?
Yes, of course. I mean, the Putin administration and intelligence services are a big spoiler in our democracies. There is ample evidence that they were behind hacking, smear campaigns in the United States. In other countries, in Germany, they also tried in France during the presidential campaign against Emmanuel Macron, but they overdid it.
But what's the aim? I mean, other than causing mayhem and confusion?
Well, this is exactly the aim, causing confusion in the minds that maybe democracy doesn't really exist. That maybe it's all a game with tricks played by the ruling elites. And this is working relatively well in a number of countries. In a way, the Trump voter is somebody who doesn't trust the media, who doesn't trust the federal government in the United States, who trusts only his or her Facebook group friends.
But I understand it's your contention that it was never Russia's intention to, as it were, help the Trump campaign.
Well, yes, they did help the Trump campaign against Hillary Clinton, and my guess, that of course I cannot prove it, and nobody will ever be able to prove what was the last drop that made Trump win. My guess is rather that the Russian authorities wanted confusion, wanted to show that American elections were no more democratic or transparent than Russian elections, and expected Hillary Clinton to win, but not win well and be a weak president.
But generally the objective is what for Russia? To produce weaker governments?
Not so much weaker governments, but weaker societies. Weaker political societies. And this is what some of us tend to label populism. But I'd rather not use the term. I think it's much too general. But it is confusion and doubt about the legitimacy, the efficiency of representative democracy. Because there is no representative democracy in Russia, of course, since elections are not free, fair, and pluralistic.
And does Russia really have the power, in current circumstances, to do anything else than that in terms of international affairs?
Well, yes, of course. They could have a much more productive foreign policy based on partnership, as has been the case since Gorbachev's time, until the first year of Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. So it is a choice that the Putin group is making, is to go for confrontation rather than partnership.
there is one cooperation story, which is between Russia and China. On the surface, that appears to be the case. Is that the reality?
What I would say is when you look at the facts and data, China and Russia don't always think alike, and certainly don't vote alike in the United Nations, for example. When the Ukrainian events unfolded, China did not support the Russian position but abstained. Of course, in other issues, they will vote with Russia. I would say that the Chinese authorities are quite clever at sometimes just hiding behind Russia, so that Russia will be on the forefront with a rather belligerent position against Western countries, for example, and China will vote with Russia, but let Russia, I think, fight and take the lead, but also bear the damage.
And what about the Belt and Road, which obviously directly heads up towards the north through Russian territory?
Well, I think the One Belt, One Road is the continuation of quite a long time challenge from China. And I think way back already 20 years ago, China started to make inroads in former republics of the Soviet Union, for example, Kazakhstan and other countries. And the One Belt, One Road is the public exposition of this policy, which is China is a major economic power. It has money. It can invest. I see Russian territory quite isolated from the very nexus of those investments. China is the leading power in that part of Asia, and the Russians know very well that they are weaker. Of course, the Putin regime is still very strong in the capacity to use the army, to repress at home, and still have quite a significant oil and gas instrument of influence. And so let's not look at Russia as a weak power, but certainly not a power that is strong enough to project itself and build a policy that will make it a stronger partner in the relationship with China.
And indeed, in this part of the world, I mean, aside from China, you don't see Russia much anymore.
No. They had closer relations with India in Soviet times, for example. My contention is that Vladimir Putin and the men around him are still very much looking at Washington. In Soviet times, the Moscow-Washington relationship was number one in Soviet policy. It was to be on a par with the United States in strategic and military nuclear affairs, and they tend to feel now orphaned of this strategic partnership, and for this reason, they have lost their own capacity to think of themselves as a great power, but that not only spoils or deters, but actually offers opportunities, a strong partnership that will be attractive. The problem of Russia today, it's not attractive.
Well, that's very interesting. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Welcome back. As we've been reporting over the past 2 weeks, in the name of combating counter-terrorism and religious separatism, China is detaining Uyghurs and ethnic Kazakhs in what it calls vocational training camps in Xinjiang. Among those detained are some of China's most accomplished Uyghur intellectuals, including scholars, academics, writers, poets and musicians. Scholars such as anthropologist Rahil Dawood and poet Ablet Abdulrashid Berki have been rounded up. Economist Ilham Tohti, found guilty of separatist activities in 2014, has been imprisoned for life. Human rights advocates say this is part of a deliberate attempt to weaken and even destroy the cultural identity of Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities.
Баласын Қытай Халық Республикасының азаматтары Қазақстанға келуін сұраймын.
Менің есімім ағам Хамит Шегірұлы, жеңгем Қайнысым Қармет.
Тезірек Қазақстан отбасына жіберуін сұранамын.
Бұл кісінің тірі өлігін білгім келеді және бұл кісіден хабар алып беруіңізді тілеймін.
Хабар осы қыз үй қамақта отыр. Мамам осы түрмеден шыққанына 11 ай болды. Қазір үй қамақта 2 ай болып жатыр.
This is Abdurrahim Hiyet, a prominent Uyghur musician and poet. Last month, the Turkish government cited reports that Hiyet had died in a re-education camp. He had been sentenced to 8 years in detention. The Chinese authorities believe his songs present a terrorist threat. Hours after Hiyet's reported death, China's state media released a video featuring a man said to be Hiyet himself. In the video, he says he is in good health. Activists doubt his authenticity. The doubts over Hiyet's well-being have increased growing fears over his fate, as well as that of other intellectuals in the camps.
Bir sözben aytqanda, Uyg'uristonda ол енді тарихтан бері ұйғырлардың жері. Ұйғыр ұлтын, онымен қосып қазақ, басқа түрік мұсылман ұлттарын бір ұлт сияқты өз кімлігі дейді ұйғырша самоидентификация. Сол әр ұлттың өзінің өз кімлігі бар. Соны жоқ қылу. Оның орнына коммунистік Қытай бір ұлтын нету. Менің енді қытайша білмеймін, естігенім бар. Сол дұрыс па, өтірік па? Жунхуа жен. Сондай ма? Вот соны құру.
Here in Almaty, Kazakhstan, families are left reeling as they search for information of their loved ones who are still missing in Xinjiang. Uyghurs are the majority of those affected in Xinjiang, but ethnic Kazakhs here in Almaty also have stories to tell. "38-year-old Xinjiang-born Guli is a mother of 2. She's currently living in Almaty with her youngest son. 3 years ago, Guli opened a clothes shop in Kazakhstan. She says she was happy until she learned the Chinese government had listed Kazakhstan as one of 26 countries it deems sensitive. Any connection with any of these countries increases your chances of being sent to a re-education camp. As she was afraid of possible consequences, Guli decided to obtain residency in Kazakhstan. Not long later, her father, a retired senior teacher, was locked up inside a camp.
当地派出所给我说，因为你加入外国国籍，所以你们家里的可能思想可能有问题，所以你爸去政治学习。我加入韩国国籍是我自愿，跟我有关，但是为什么要抓我爸？我爸是高级教师。 他不是不会说汉语，也会说汉语，也会写，也会读，我确实是挺想不通这个话。再说他是60多岁的人，还让他学。我爸进去了以后，所有的亲戚都害怕，都不敢到我们家，都不敢去，都不去，都联系都 不跟他联系了，就我妈一个人在家。
Local authorities in Xinjiang have organized a Becoming Family campaign, a state program they describe as cultural exchange, in which local government officials are deployed to live in the home of a Uyghur host family. The government called these families Family in Focus. But Guli said it's really about installing government spies, as the families usually don't need any such help.
我们家里政府那边 给我们家里人安排了一个女孩，也就是年龄跟我差不多吧。我爸说是我的汉族女儿，组织那边已经安排每个月都要得有，好像是有规定的时间，不是一个星期一次，或者是一个月1、2天嘛，还是什么，都必须得住那个房间，派出所也好。 居委会也好，把我们家里，弄了一个重点家庭，也就是居委会那边，就这些重点家庭都有这种情况。
In 2017, Guli and her husband divorced. She has custody of their youngest son. Her husband takes care of the older son. Guli says she desperately wants to bring her older child out of Xinjiang, but she has yet to hear from the local authorities.
如果能帮忙的话，问问我大儿子，想跟我在一起，还是想跟爸爸在一起？ 如果大儿子想跟我在一起的话，能帮我把他接回来。
Like Guli's father, Mardan Abulisi's mother, Sarah Islam, is an intellectual who has been sent to a re-education camp in Xinjiang. We met Mardan in the office of the human rights group Atatürk while he was taping a testimony about her. Sarah is a Uyghur, a retired gynecologist from a hospital in Yiling, Xinjiang. Shortly after her retirement in 1998, she came to Kazakhstan to live with Mardan. In April 2017, she was asked to return to China. Once she did, she was sent to a camp because she had WhatsApp on her phone. Using any non-Chinese mobile application is a punishable offense. But Mardan says only the provincial administration knows the real reasons for her detention.
Мен ойлаймын да, менің ойымша енді ол кездерде әртүрлі нәрселер, қазір мен ойлаймын о жаққа бар ғой. Олар ештеңкені ойламай апарады. Менің ойымша да. Ойламай апарады, сен білімдісің ба, білімді емессің ба. Қысқасы, ана жерде істеп жатқан адамдарда да ми жоқ. Бір нәрсенің обал сауабын білмейтін адамдар менше. Менің ойымда да. Енді ол енді не деп түсіне алмаймын мен қысқасы. Қалай деп түсінді? Мысалы, бір адам жақсы, не болса жаман болып бүйтіп бөлінеді ғой. Жамандарды да кішкене не болады өзінің. Әйелдер бөлінді, мысалы, бала туылдыратын, баланың несін. Сонымен ол кісі кәсібіне, жан-жағындағы дос жарандарына, бауыр туыстардың бәрін шығуыңыз керек деп, тағы бір екі сақшы кеп, сөйткеннен кейін амалсыздан жатуға мәжбүрленгеннен кейін барып, 2018 жылы 7 март күні барған екен. 7 март күні барып, сосын тура сол кезде олардың өздерінің ішінен үлкен жастағы адамдардың бәрі жатуға болмайды, шығарып етейік деген бір ұқты.
Although 76-year-old Sarah is now out of the camp, she is not allowed to leave Xinjiang. Mardan is worried about her health and about her being alone. As a passionate singer, Mardan says he wants to express his feelings through lyrics, hoping that one day the world will bring justice to his mother, and all those who suffer due to China's re-education camps.
Шет жүрсем сағынарым, жабықсам шағынарым, анашым бір өзіңсің табынарым. Анашым шалқып күлсең, алдымда ұзақ жүрсең, жүрегім жыр толғайды, көңілім ортаймайды. Анасы бар адамдар ешқашан қартаймайды, жүрегім жыр толғайды, көңілім ортаймайды. Анасы бар адамдар ешқашан қартаймайды.